Good morning. Well, I hope everyone is doing well. Today we're going to continue our series on meeting Jesus, looking at the encounters individuals had with Jesus and the impact it had on their life. And as we've stated many times, you can't come in contact with Jesus and it not change you. And I meant that when I said it, how many ever weeks ago? I mean it more today than I've ever meant it. And so today, as we look at this character, this person in Simon and the sinful woman, we're going to look at their story and look at what God does and how God uses both of these individuals. But I'll tell you, as you know, last week, if you were here and if you weren't, I encourage you to go on YouTube and watch the service. But I shared a lot about how through just some simple areas, God broke me and exposed some things in me. And really, this week has kind of been this transformation of how God is just saying, okay, now let's do this for real. And so I'll tell you, I really connect with this sinful woman. As I read this, I thought, man, I felt like my kindred spirit in this sinful woman. And I'll share some of that as we go. But before we look at this, let's just read the verses. Make sure we're all on the same page, and then we'll kind of go a little further. So we're going to be in Luke 7, 36 through 50. And it says, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him, so Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from that city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. Then when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. Then Jesus answered his thoughts. Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I have something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. Then Jesus told him this story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 to the other. But neither of them could pay him, so he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the largest debt. That's right, Jesus said. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven. So she has shown me much love, but a person who has forgiven little shows only a little love. Then Jesus said to the woman, your sins are forgiven. The men at the table said among themselves, who is this man that he goes around forgiving sins? And Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. So what I want us to do with this story is there's really kind of three aspects that I want us to look into further. In this kind of encounter, there's three pieces to it, and I want us to kind of dissect, examine, look a little closer at them, and really compare and contrast the Simon and the woman. So the first area I want us to look at is how they met Jesus. How did they come in contact with Jesus, and what were the differences in their encounter? So when you look at this story, before I kind of look at these verses and then go deeper, I don't know if this is Simon's first time meeting Jesus. I don't know if this is how many times he's come in contact with Jesus. We know about this time. He's probably seen him. I know he'd heard about him. But when it comes to this woman, as I studied, and I'll be honest, I never really thought about it before. I actually, on its surface, probably without thinking about it, thought this was her first time meeting Jesus. But as I studied and read more, what I realize is this is most likely her response to a prior encounter with Jesus. Because if you think about it, she didn't ask him for anything. Why? Because he'd already done it. And yes, he says, I forgive you. But when you look at the words being used, it's used in more of a past tense, that you've been forgiven. And so what we're seeing is someone who has encountered Jesus, and this is her response to knowing who Jesus is. And when you see it that way, it starts to shift like, oh, okay. Because again, ultimately, most of the time when people come into contact with Jesus for the first time, they know he's different, but they don't understand he's God. They don't get, he has to say, oh, it's your sin that needs forgiven, right? The woman at the well, she was thirsty. He said, but you're spiritually thirsty. I'm blind. No, you're spiritually blind. He would see through to the need and already expose it. I can't see another time where someone said, hey, Jesus, I have sins to be forgiven. He saw that need and he exposed that need. And this woman already is aware of that, right? So I'm telling you that so it gives you a little context in how she is responding and why she's responding the way she is. So let's look at the verses first. 36 through 37, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him, so Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from that city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. All right, so let's stop there. So how did they meet Jesus? Well, Simon, he met him in a comfortable and convenient way, right? He invited Jesus. He had Jesus come on his terms, to his place. He didn't go to Jesus. He said, Jesus, you come to my house. You come here where I'm comfortable. And he planned the time. He prepared for that moment. It was comfortable and convenient. But the woman, she met Jesus. Her encounter with Jesus was desperate. It was, I got to be with this man. See, to understand why she would just walk into someone's house, you have to understand that in this time, when a teacher, when a rabbi would come to a home and they would open the door and leave it open so that people could just come on in and ask questions. People could come in and have conversation. And it says that he was laid back. That was the teacher offering conversation, offering welcome. So he was presenting himself in a way that says, come to me, let's talk. And the door was open so people could come in. It wasn't that you're at your house, you're having a dinner party, and somebody just says, hey, I'm coming in, thanks for the invite, and you don't know who they are. It was the environment that this guy's here, come if you want to be a part of it. Now, that's not to say that it would have been easy for her to walk into that room. Because it says an immoral woman. We don't know her sins. We don't even know who she is. But we know that these men thought they were better than her. Simon says, why would he touch her? And this woman is so desperate to be near Jesus, with Jesus. The only thing that matters is Jesus. She doesn't care who's thinking about her, what they're going to say about her, how they'll talk about her, that they'll laugh at her. She needs Jesus so much, she'll go wherever he is. And I just thought, which one are you? Do you go wherever Jesus is? Do you need Jesus so badly that you don't need, it doesn't have to be comfortable, it doesn't have to be convenient, you just go. If he's there, you want to be there. Or is your pursuit of Jesus comfortable and convenient? And see, until last week, I'm not sure I would have really known the difference. But as I read this, I so clearly related to both individuals, because so much of my life has been a pursuit of Jesus in a comfortable and convenient way. I schedule my time. I open up my Bible at 7 o'clock. Lord, you ready? Come on, come meet me. It's 7. You know I do my Bible study at 7. Lord, come down, meet me, speak. Let's go. All right, it's 8. Bye, Lord. See you later. And I know, listen, I'm not saying that if you have a set time to meet with the Lord, it's wrong. But I know that there's been very much of my life that I thought I had the power to dictate and control when God spoke and when he would do things, and it was up to me when we got to meet. And then I see this woman, and I'll be honest, I always envied her, I always was drawn to her, but I also always felt a little sorry for her. Like, oh gosh, you were so broken. Now, since last week when God, and I know not everybody was here for this, but I shared how God just revealed some things to me and stripped some stuff from me. And in this moment, I saw who I was in the eyes of the Lord, and it literally broke me. After that, I began to not see this woman as someone to feel sorry for, but see this woman as someone to envy. Because this is someone who has fully experienced who God is, and she can't get enough. And she's not dictating when she gets God, where she gets God. You're there. You're in a very uncomfortable situation. God, you're where I shouldn't be. You're where people will laugh at me. People make fun of me. I'm on my way. And I just wonder for you, have you somehow tricked yourself into believing that you have the ability and power to determine when you get God and when you don't? Because here's what God has shown me. If I think that I get to decide when God speaks and moves in my life, I am most likely going to miss him more than I'm going to receive him. See, what I realize is for many years, I've just been getting a glimpse of God. I've been getting his back of his corner as he's walked out the room. I've been seeing part of him, but missing who he is. And when he stripped everything away and he said, will I be enough for you, Brad? I said, yes. All of a sudden I realized, oh, he wants to go everywhere I go. He don't just want 7 o'clock in the morning to read a verse and then we're done for the day. No, he said, I want to be with you all day long. I want to take you here. I want to take you there. And it's not going to always be easy. But you will never be bored. Here's what God showed me this week. For the last little while, I've been really bored with my life. I thought I was happy, but I was so unsatisfied. I was so unfulfilled. And until he stripped it all away and made me fully dependent on him, I realized, oh, this is what it means to live life abundantly. I'm going to tell you something. The minute, and I refer it, so I know some of you weren't here, but it was actually this wall right here, over here, that I laid and cried for 45 minutes as God worked with me on some things. And the minute I got up from that wall, I knew that God kind of whispered in my ear, listen, you're going to have some tough conversations with people. I knew that was coming. And I went, okay, Lord, I don't want to think about it, so I'll just trust you. And he said, there's going to be some things that you're going to have to deal with, but I'm not going to let go of you, and I'm going to be every step of the way. And we did, and it has. And listen, so in that moment, I said, God, I'm just going to trust you. I said that before, but I'm really going to trust you. And there's been moments where I didn't see him coming, and some really hard conversations I convinced myself that couldn't happen, that would never happen. But God said, if they don't, you'll never move on. You'll never heal. And you know what? I survived them. We were okay. Relationships are healing. God's doing things in incredible ways. And so every step of the way, I'm like, okay. So every morning I wake up going, okay, God, what's coming today? Because I don't know, but I'm telling you, there's not been one moment I've been bored this last week. There's not been one moment that I've thought, gosh, God, I just wish there was more to this life. I feel like, I told somebody, I feel like for the first time I taste things and see things in ways that I never had before. It's like trees have color and life is brighter than it's ever been. And like every morning I come, and so again, I like to have my life orchestrated and organized. And God said, listen, what if just you got up today and said, hey, what do you want me to do today? Not what did you have planned today? What do you want me to do today? So Monday, I drove here, came to work, started to walk in my office, and I felt this gross feeling in my stomach that said, if you sit down at that desk, you're being disobedient. I said, okay, Lord, I'm not going to sit down. So I got back in my car, I drove, I got out of my car, and just started walking around, and I just started making phone calls. I called all kinds of people in the church, just touching base with people, checking on people. And it was the most satisfying day I've had in so long. And all I could hear God saying is, listen, there is so much more that I want to do with you, but you have to stop being in control. You have to stop planning. You have to stop preparing. And you're going to have to start trusting me. And I want you to understand, that doesn't mean every day this week has been easy. Yesterday was not easy. I mean, You know, you like to think, there's somewhere in your mind you like to think, God, if I fully trust you, you're going to just bless the pants off of me. And he has, but it's also been hard. I get in my car, I'm spending time with my family. I feel like even my oldest daughter said, Dad, you're different. I said, I know, and I'm sorry it took this long, but I'm glad I am. And I mean, for so long, I needed to be so in control that I would have to come here on Sundays about 3, 4 o'clock, and I would spend the night here. I don't know if you know this. I would spend the night here and get up at 3 in the morning so I could fully be prepared, practice, fully in control, because I don't like surprises. And God said, well, let's do some surprises. Life should be more surprising, because when you're surprised, who do you depend on? Me. So I said, all right, so the minute Sunday happened, I knew that's no more. So I said, told my family, I'm giving Saturdays back. So I'm spending time with my family. I'm enjoying it. I'm thinking everything's good. I'm getting ready to pull out of my garage, and I forget that my car is not where it usually is. It's usually pulled up, but there's a swimming pool, a blow-up swimming pool the girls have been playing in here, so my car's pushed back a little bit. And so where I normally would pull, I couldn't pull, and I forget, and I pull right into the side of my car. And I crush the door. It opens, but, you know, it doesn't look good, and it's not good. And so I was frustrated. And in that moment, I could have just said, I could have lost it, right? And I wanted to for a moment, and then I realized, listen, it's stupid, it's my fault, but life goes on. And Ava Kate looked at me and said, you mad? I said, I'm not happy, but I'm not mad. She said, that's different. And we just went on, and I said, you know, I just like, okay, Lord, gosh, I was stupid. I felt dumb, right? So I thought that would be the worst thing that happened that day. 5 hours later, I'm driving back from getting food. I'm in Horseshoe. I'm at the stoplight. Somebody's turning, so we all slow down, except the car behind me doesn't realize we're slowed down. And going 50 miles an hour, she slams into the back of my car. And I'm telling you, I put it in park. I looked up and went, really, Lord? I just like, what are we doing? But I said, you know what? All right, let's see what happens. So I get out of the car. I look over. There's this girl, she's sobbing, she's freaking out. She's like, I'm sorry. And I said, it's okay, it's fine. I said, I'm okay, are you okay? She said, yes, I'm okay, but I'm so sorry I did this. And you know, I'm looking at her, and I can see instantly life has not been easy on her. I can just see it in her eyes, I can see it in her face, and I know that, you know, just slow down, be gentle. So she said, I don't know what to do, I've never had this happen. I said, it's okay, I'll take care of it, I'll call, we'll be fine. So I call the cops. They come out. I call Brooke, tell her dinner's going to be a little late. I'll be home in a little bit. And then I get off the phone, and I look over at the girl, and I clearly heard the Lord say, go take care of her and make sure she knows I love her. So I walk over, and she's still crying, and I said, hey, it's okay. I said, breathe. I kind of walk her through some things because she's about to have a panic attack, so I get her to take a deep breath. We're talking a second. I ask her her name. I tell her mine. And I say, can I pray for you? And she stops, and she looks up at me. And she said, yeah, I think I would like that. I said, okay. So I pray for her. And I just start praying the gospel over her. I said, Lord, right now I pray that this girl knows that you sent your son to die for her, and that you care so much about her, you would inconvenience her to remind her of how much you love her. And right now, don't let her leave this place without being overwhelmed by your love. Amen. And so we just talked. And she's a recovering addict. Today, actually, is her 3rd year sober. She just got her kids back. She's working so hard. And she's like, and then this. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I said, listen, I know this is inconvenient. I know this is frustrating. This is not what you wanted. But I tell you this, with every being in my body, I know that God put me at that red light, allowed me to get hit, so he could use me to tell you he loves you, and he created you for a relationship, and he wants more for you than you've experienced up to this point in your life. And she was speechless. Eventually we talked a little more, and I told her I was a pastor, and she said, I knew it. I knew you were a pastor. The minute you got out of your car, I said, that's actually the first time I ever heard that. Most people say, you're a pastor? She said, when you got out of the car, I just knew something was different. This is weird. And I said, well, and she said, well, I'm sorry. You should be mad at me right now. She said, I am so lucky that it was you that was in that, because most people be cussing me right now. I said, listen, God has forgiven me of so much that who am I to not forgive you of this? I said, and listen, you're not lucky. God literally put me in this place, in this moment, so you would hear how much he loves you. And so I gave her my number. I told her I would check in on her. And I don't know what God's going to do with it, but this is what it looked. And again, and I got back in the car and I said, Lord, I'm grateful you're using me. Just could we take it easy on my car? Like, this is tough. But this is what it looks like to say, God, where you go, I go. I'm telling you, convenient, comfortable meetings with Jesus, don't take me there. I promise you, I would have missed that moment if I hadn't been walking with God. We were literally talking as she hit me. I'm talking to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, listen, I am so grateful for this. Continue to use me. Bam! And he says, all right, get out. Let's go. And I just want to encourage you. And it's not something you manufacture. It's not something you create. But I'm telling you, God wants more than a comfortable, convenient meeting where you give him give him your time in the morning. But what else does he have of you? What other times does he get to be present and speak into your life? Listen, until this week, I have never fully understood the verse, pray without ceasing. I've taught it. I've talked about it. But I never knew how to implement it. If I'm really being honest with you, prayer's always been a struggle for me. I've struggled very often with prayer. I knew the need for it, but it always felt like I was forcing it. For the first time, it didn't feel like a force. It just felt like the most natural thing to do, to talk to him about everything. All day long. All day long. I'm like, hey, how we doing, God? The other night, I was talking back and forth. Nora Gray walks in and goes, who are you talking to? I'm like, God. She's like, what? I'm like, I'm talking to God. She said, and I said, he was talking back. She goes, well, excuse me? He doesn't do that. I said, well, it wasn't verbal, but we were speaking. He was speaking to my spirit. And it's just, again, he's opening up new things that I have never experienced. And this isn't about me. This is about, I once thought I somehow fooled myself into thinking I got to invite God to the party. And if you think you can control or you can create opportunities for God, I'm telling you, the only times you see him is by accident. It's not intentional opportunities. Yes, he may reveal himself to you. Yes, he may say something to you, but I promise you, you are missing what God created you to have. It was never meant to be this scheduled little moment where I get you here and I'll put you in a box and I'll call you back up on Sunday or I'll call you on Tuesday. He said, I want to be with you always. And this woman, the sinful woman, she was desperate for God. It didn't matter where he was. I need you to understand, the last place she should have been is in a person of a religious home, in a place where everyone was better than her. No one like her would have gone. But she needed Jesus more than she needed anything else. She was desperate for him. So let's continue. So now let's look at their response to Jesus, how they responded to Jesus. Look at these verses. When Jesus talking, he said to the woman, he said, look at this woman kneeling. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. And then he also goes 46 about the oil, and she anointed me with oil and washed my feet. And he says, you did none of that. See, here's how Simon responded to Jesus. He treated him as a peer. He treated him as an equal. But this woman, she saw him as royalty. She viewed Jesus as the greatest person she had ever come into contact with. So what did she do? She treated him that way. See, in this culture, it was common to wash their feet, to anoint them with oil, to give them a kiss. But it wasn't the greatest sin that he didn't. What it spoke to more was, that's what you did for people that you had this high respect for. The more you respected someone, the more you did for them when they came into your home. So all that did, it wasn't that he was so disrespectful. It just showed that he had a very low view of who Jesus was. But this woman saw Jesus for who he was, and she was in awe of him. And because she was desperate, and because she viewed him as the greatest person she had ever come into contact with, she was willing to sacrifice everything. See, she sacrificed her safety. She went to a place that, we've seen in Scripture where women like her were stoned for what they had done. We've seen how poorly women who they felt weren't living up to their standard were treated, and she put herself in that place. Why? Because of Jesus. She sacrificed her pride. I guarantee if she had paid attention to what was being said, it would have hurt. But she didn't care because she needed Jesus. And she didn't just sacrifice her pride and her safety, she sacrificed her money. She gave her valuables. See, that bottle of perfume in that alabaster jar, it's said to have been 300 denarii, which would have been a year's worth of salary, which is probably not even close to what she made. This is probably something she had saved for a very long time. And it is safe to say this is the most valuable thing she owned. And it was just a natural instinct to say, oh, Jesus is there? Let's dump this out and make sure he knows how special he is. See, when you're desperate and your view of him is higher than anything else, your instinct is to say, here, God, here's everything I have. I don't want to hold anything back because I don't want anything to keep me from experiencing you. And as I laid on that wall and God began to show me some things that had to go in my life, my next instinct was, God, here, take everything. Please, here's as much as I can give you. I was trying to toss everything out because I didn't want this to stop. I had seen him so clearly in a way I hadn't for so long. I didn't want anything to get in the way. My next step, and I don't tell you this to brag or anything, because this isn't instinctual for me. The first thing I did was I grabbed this right here. And if you know me, this has been way too important in my life. It carries way too much of my attention. I would be embarrassed to even tell you the percentage it gives me of how much time I'm on my phone every week. Every Sunday it sends me a report. You were on your phone for 97% of your day. The first thing I did is I grabbed this phone, I opened it up, and I said, Lord, I don't know why I did it this way, but this is what I did. I said, Lord, I'm going to hover over an app. If you tell me to go, I'll delete it. And I said, everything you want deleted off my phone, I'm deleting it. 90% of the things on my phone got deleted that night. He didn't take everything. I'm not, and I never once was a, you're no good, you got to do this to get my love. It was a, hey, I want to continue this relationship. I don't want to miss anything. Just you show me what could help me, would keep me from missing you. So I just started deleting and deleting and deleting. And then the next thing, he said, your earbuds, they got to go. And see, I need you to understand something. This is going to sound so little to you. You're going to like, apps and earbuds? It's stupid, but they have become such a part of my life that I depended on them. I never had a moment where I was silent. There always was noise in my ear, never quiet. If I wasn't with people, sometimes with people, I would stick an earbud in and there was something playing. So that the minute I got up, I heard God say, let's put them away. So I took all the earbuds, just put them in a box and shoved them in my drawer. And I'm going to tell you something. I didn't know if I was going to share this, but it's coming out. The minute I put those in the box and I knew I was giving those to God, I had this unbelievable fear come over me. It was actually scary, the fear. I was in this office. It was 1 a.m. And all of a sudden I started going, Lord, why am I afraid? I don't understand why I'm scared right now. It was like thinking, I thought, somebody in here? I was so afraid. I didn't want to leave. I wouldn't leave my office. I was so scared. And then I kept thinking, Lord, please help me understand why I'm afraid. And then the next few moments, as I just began praying, I realized it was because it was quiet and it was silent. And I was afraid of silence. And I know you're going, what? I don't get it either. I got so dependent on there always being noise that just hearing my own thoughts and hearing God's voice terrified me. And the minute I realized that, the fear went away. And I went, oh, Lord, I needed that more than I thought I did. And so, listen, I'm only telling you that to say, when we see God for who he is, not as a good person, not as powerful, not as someone I should love, but as someone that I am desperately in love with, the greatest individual to ever impact my life, the next instinct is, God, take it all, because I want nothing else to come in between me and you. She gave. She couldn't afford to give what she gave, but who Jesus was more important than anything else. Let's look at the last one. Third, the response to sin. They have a different response to sin. See, look at these verses here. It says, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this happening, he said, if he was a prophet, he would know what kind of woman he was touching, and he wouldn't do that. Then Jesus answered, Simon, I have something to say to you. He said, go ahead. Then Jesus told him the story. A man loaned money of 2 people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other. But neither of them could repay him, so he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose the one whom he canceled the larger debt. That's right, Jesus said. And we'll just stop right there. We've read those verses already. So here's the thing. Simon, he saw this woman sin real clearly. And she wore it on her. She wore it, right? I am sure she earned her reputation. I'm not saying this isn't someone who made some bad choices. But this story that Jesus is telling would make you think that there are actually people who need more forgiveness than others. But that's not what he's saying. No, he's saying that this woman sees that she's the one who needs forgiveness. And Simon, you don't. See, Simon didn't need forgiveness less than her. He needed just as much forgiveness of his sins as the sinful woman. But he was unaware of that need. See, Romans, it says, for everyone has sinned. Not a couple, not some, not the prostitutes, not the murderers or the pedophiles. Everyone fell short. Not one person is not desperately in need of Jesus' forgiveness. But what separated the two is one saw it and one didn't. So you want to know why this woman was so desperate for Jesus? You want to know this woman saw Jesus as the greatest person to ever enter her life and was willing to give everything? Because she understood her need for forgiveness. See, today is not a message about how you should be more desperate for God and you should see him as greater. No, today is about until you understand the depth and darkness of your sin and your need for Jesus, you will never be desperate for him. And I've sat where you were, and I've stood here and thought I understood my sin and his love. But until I sat on that wall and he broke me. See, here's what happened that night. He didn't just bring my sins to my attention. He didn't just expose me. No, he let me see my sin through the eyes of God. He let me see how much God hated my sin, my selfishness, my inappropriate thoughts. He let me see every bit of how God felt about my sin, and it broke me. It almost to the point where I could barely breathe. I was so overwhelmed. I was suffocating by it. But right then, when I thought it was going to kill me, he also let me see how much he loved me and desired me at the exact same moment. See, it is not just the depravity of our sin that we have to be aware of. You ever been to a wedding, and at the wedding, when the beautiful bride's about to walk in, you looked over and saw the groom, and you saw the tears in his eyes, you saw the joy in his face, you saw how just overwhelmed he was by how much he loved that bride? You ever seen that? Multiply that by 100, and that's what God let me see. God let me see that he looks at me like that, and I don't understand it, and I don't get it. But as bad as my sin, He let me see that he wants me that bad. He desires me, that he is crazy about me. And I'm telling you, those two things at the exact same time is life-altering. Life-altering. And I'm going to tell you, if you're not desperate for Jesus, if you've got Jesus on a timetable, on a schedule, if you're holding things back, if he's not willing to sacrifice everything for, it's because you've yet to fully understand the depravity of your sin, but the bigness of his love all at one time. I mean it. I couldn't have said it like this before. I wouldn't have even thought to say it like this. But until God shined a light on every dark place in my life, but also said, I won't leave you. I still love you. I got you. I'm not giving up on you. I'm going to wait on you. I'm going to hold you tight. It was until that moment I didn't get how great he was. I didn't realize being desperate for God is not something I work towards. It is my natural response. Because once you've fully aware of how unlovable you are, I'm not saying you know you're not good. I'm talking about you are fully aware and still fully loved. It's hard to be desperate. And I'll be honest, in that moment, and I as I was laying there, and I did, my brain wanted to say, you're crazy. This is a crazy moment. But he kept bringing scripture to mind. And I kept thinking of times where stuff like this happened, where Isaiah, look at every time someone's fully in the presence of God, what's their response? They drop to their knees. Woe is me. They are like, like they can't get it out. They're just disgusted by themselves. But it never stops that way, does it? What happens to Isaiah? The angel comes, put the coals to his mouth, and then what? Get up. Let's go. And what does he say? Send me. See, Jesus never says, here's your sin, be broken by it. Now lay there. He says, here's your sin, be broken by it. Now get up and let's do this. Matthew, when it says, all those are weary, come to me. My burden is light, my yoke is light. I thought that was a good verse. Now I understand that verse. Because I did feel like I was going to suffocate in that moment until God shined this other light on his face and he was still proud of me. He was still in love with me. He never turned his back on me. And all of a sudden I went, oh, that's what it means to be convicted by my sin, ask for forgiveness, and then the pressure of that sin never be on me again. Oh, that's what that means. And I'm going to tell you something. That doesn't mean that all week long I have done it right and I haven't been where I didn't need to be. Because what it means is I've been now so obsessed with God that when I realize, oh, that's a sin, I don't go, oh. I go, oh, I'm sorry, God. Forgive me of that. And we just keep going. We don't have this big pity party. I don't mourn. We just keep going. Because I go, hey, you died for that too. I'm sorry. Here it is. Thanks for showing me. I mean, this week, all week long, he showed me, hey, there's some things you thought were okay that weren't. You know what I realized this week? I'm a big fat liar. I lie a lot. I'm just going to be real with you. And I confessed to my family yesterday. I said, I got a confession. They said, another one? I said, I just thought of this, but I just want to be honest. I want to be upfront. I realized this week I lie about everything. And it's not on purpose. It's just easy, right? Like if I think someone's going to be mad about what I'm about to say, I'll just say it's something else so we don't have to deal with it. So, for example, sometimes I'm a little loose with money, and so I'm helping with VBS at Etowah, and there's props, and I need something, and so I go buy a pair of shorts, and I'm like, oh gosh, Brooke's going to ask me where I got these. Oh, I'll just say I found them somewhere. And then God said, I was like, okay. And I went, oh no, it's not, Lauren. And all of a sudden I realized how that's been an instinct for me. And I don't like that. But we're working on it, right? And so all week long. And another thing God showed me is you are incredibly arrogant. You are so full of yourself. So you know what? This week, I have been the least confident in myself I've ever been. I'm seeing, seriously, I have been the least confident in my abilities, in my words, but you know what I have been? I have also, at the exact same time, never been more confident in who God is, ever. And I'm actually more dangerous than I've ever been. Because there's not a conversation I won't have. There's not a person I won't go. I call everybody. I told everybody on my phone, I'm not texting anymore. You want to talk to me, we'll talk on the phone. We're going to hear each other's voices. We're going to have relationships. We're not going to hide behind a text. It's going to make people uncomfortable. I get it. But I am so excited about what it looks like to finally be so in love with God that nothing else matters. I have never needed the approval of others less than I need right now. And it's freeing. And I wish I could just say, here's you some, here's you some, here's you some. But here's how you get some. God breaks you. God reveals your sin. Not here. He allows you to see that it was your lies that nailed him into the cross. It was your perverted thoughts. It was your arrogance. It was your selfishness. It was your sin. And it hurts. And it will take your breath away. And you might feel like you're about to die. But then I pray he also exposes you to his face like a groom, still so proud, so excited, so in love with you. And when you experience the pain and the love at the same time, it will set you free. And I believe there are some of you today, that's where God's bringing you. I've heard stories where God is at work, working in people's lives. I hear people say things that are happening, and I'm thinking, it's coming. Because the other thing God showed me? He's been doing this for about 6 months. Now I can see how little things, I could see that I just randomly thought I would get a counselor to keep me kind of fresh, and I could see how that counselor just talking to this therapist brought some things out that I'm like, that's not great about me. But I kind of just pushed it to the side, and I was like, I don't like that about me. But I stuck it to the side. I could see how the surgery, as random as my tonsil surgery was, I had wanted to do this for years, and for some reason said, now's the time. I could see how God said, I am getting you ready to bring you to a place where you need me more than you ever have. And I tell you, I don't deserve it, but I'm so grateful. And I pray that he does the same thing for you, because the alternative is boring. It's empty. I'm confident I had a relationship with Jesus. It just wasn't abundant. It wasn't fulfilling me. It wasn't satisfying all of who I am. And today, the only thing that I live for is his approval. And I'm not saying it'll be perfect. I'm not saying it's right. And I don't know what the next step is going to take me. But I'm excited to see where I'm going. And I pray that you will open up your hearts and you begin to say, God, what do I need to see that I haven't been aware of? What have I been holding back from you? What have I not been willing to give you? He'll listen and he'll show you. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for who you are. I thank you for what you've done in my life. I don't deserve it. And I know, I pray that no one hears a story about what Brad's done, but how through the grace of you, God, you've loved me through who I was. You used me even when I didn't deserve to be used. But now you've brought me to a place where I'm fully and utterly surrendered to you. And I'm so grateful for it, Lord. Thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward to see where we're headed. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for going on this journey with me. I love you. And if you want to talk or you have some questions or just want to hear more, I got lots I can't say in a short amount of time. So if you want to talk, let's talk. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.